I want to bring in Jamil Jaffer. He's previously served in several top national security roles, including as counsel to the Assistant Attorney General for National Security, and he's the founder and executive director of the National Security Institute. Jamil, appreciate you being here. We still don't know the specific wording in this memorandum of understanding, but from what we do know, do you see this as an effective step to get to the more complicated nuclear negotiations, and how much weight should we be putting in this?
Well, Omar, the devil is in the details. The question is, how much is Iran committing to? Are they really committing to giving up all of their enriched uranium? Are they agreeing to give up permanently their ability to enrich uranium domestically? Are they willing to open the Strait of Hormuz with no conditions, no checking in with them, no multi-million-dollar payments to get through the strait? All of that seems to be in controversy because on one side, the president says those are minimum conditions. On the other side, Iran says they're getting something good for them on all sides of that. So we'll have to see what this framework deal says. We'll have to see when and if at all they get money, because as you know, President Trump was apoplectic when the Biden administration, actually the Obama administration, and the Biden administration followed through on it, gave Iran a bunch of cash. He blew his lid on that one, I think rightly so. If he does that himself here and or allows them to retain a uranium enrichment capability, the very thing he castigated the Obama nuclear deal for doing, it would be a disaster having gone through all of this effort to attack Iran, to bomb their nuclear sites and the like. And by the way, the fact that we're not getting that uranium now and not removing it, and there's talk about downblending it, reducing its enrichment, that just demonstrates this is likely going to be a deal that is not a good one for the United States.
We've also been here before in various respects. And to your point, we're still waiting to see the concrete details of this or a concrete timeline, especially with these conflicting reports. But we've been here before, seemingly on the verge of some sort of diplomatic breakthrough, especially as projected by the president over 30 times by our count. Does this feel any different to you, or do you feel like this posturing is more of what we've seen as the same?
Well, it feels different in the sense that the president's putting more and more pressure on. He's saying it publicly again. You're right. It's almost 39 times he's said that we're about to get to a deal. The problem, of course, is every time he does that and looks desperate for a deal, the Iranians think they have an advantage. They push harder. They try to get more concessions. That is a terrible negotiating tactic. For being the best negotiator the country's ever seen by his own description, Donald Trump seems to keep giving away his own negotiating leverage. What he's got to do, he's got to stop and say, look, you don't want to do a deal, bombing starts tomorrow, and then carry through on it. He said that over and over again. He's never really restarted it. If he wants to get his leverage back, he's got to go do that. He's got to go reopen the Strait of Hormuz by force if necessary. He has been unwilling to do that, so it's no surprise the Iranians think they have all the leverage here.
Well, and even with some of the bombing that we've seen, that we haven't quite seen any progress forward in terms of the stalemate of where we seem to be right now at this point. I want to shift topics and ask you about FISA, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. This key government spy powers law, it expired at midnight after the House this week didn't pass an extension, which, of course, the law allows U.S. officials to monitor calls and texts from foreign targets. But its controversy is it can also scoop up the data of Americans at some points in the process. I just wonder, what should people understand about the ramifications of this expiring in this moment?
Well, Omar, it could not be more catastrophic. This is a time when we're at war with Iran. Maybe that war is coming to an end now, but we're in significant conflict with them. They're the world's largest terror-supporting state in the globe. Number two, we have the World Cup here in the United States. You've got China getting increasingly aggressive towards Taiwan and Russia killing civilians in Ukraine at a time of great peril for the nation. And by the way, don't forget, ISIS and Al-Qaeda still want to attack us here at home and abroad. We're allowing the most productive surveillance authority in the United States, contributes about 60% of the president's daily brief, to expire. Congress, the House went out of session yesterday and went home on vacation for not just the weekend, Omar, the entire week. It is outrageous. It's appalling. It's a disaster for the country. Those members of Congress should come back on Monday, vote to pass this law, in fact, they vote to make it permanent and allow us to move forward and be safer as a nation.
I believe you described it as part of an op-ed for Roll Call that this is an act of self-sabotage that our enemies could scarcely have improved upon. This reauthorization was derailed when President Trump named Bill Pulte to serve as acting director of national intelligence. And now he's nominated U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton, for that position. But what do you make of how this was handled by the White House? Because we were talking to a Democratic congressman earlier who essentially said his distrust for Bill Pulte was more than he assessed as a higher risk than allowing the reauthorization to expire.
I mean, I don't know how you come up with that idea. I mean, look, the reality is that whatever you might think of Bill Pulte or, frankly, Tulsi Gabbard before him, or, what you might think of Jay Clayton, which, I think some Democrats think he's going to be a good pick. Jim Himes, the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, said he's going to be a solid pick. But look, it doesn't really matter what you think of the DNI or the acting DNI. This is literally the U.S.'s most productive intelligence collection capability. We're going to go down on terrorists, on spies, on foreign nation-state threat actors, because Congress doesn't want to vote to authorize this. And frankly, because Congress put itself in this position of having to renew the law every so often, only extending for 45 days at a time here and there. This is Congress's own fault. The president may have something to blame for putting an acting DNI in that people didn't think was qualified. Whoever's to blame, the reality is the law is gone now. We're no longer able to collect. If some providers are going to reduce their collection or are going to reduce our ability to get intelligence, it's not completely gone, to be clear. These orders go for a year. The problem is, as we saw in 2007, when the predecessor law expired, I was at the Justice Department, we lost surveillance. We had providers say, we're not going to go up on new targets. We're not going to give you existing collection. We're just stopping now. That's the problem we have. And at a time when we've got the World Cup here, if something goes wrong, it's going to be in the heads of every single member of Congress left town. And you want to blame the White House? Fine, blame the White House too. But nobody should leave town. Congress should come back, vote, and get this thing through.
All right, and we will see how quickly they move once this nomination process moves forward. Jamil, Jaffer, really appreciate the time and perspective. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Omar.